morning. Welcome back to the podcast. Don't let Haboob hit you in the face. People go, what are you talking about? Especially people that don't come from Phoenix or the greater Southwest desert. A number of years ago, when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, these afternoon storms in the summertime would blow my mind. How much sand and wind and dust would come blowing in. It was 110 degrees and it's crazy weather. And I didn't know where they came from. And the Haboob is now a recognition that if you look over my shoulder here, these big storms come often unexpectedly late in the summertime when the air is superheated and we go to work in the morning and think everything is just fine. There might be a few clouds out over the eastern mountains. Unfortunately, by the time people start coming home in the afternoon from work, that 65-mile wide dust cloud, it's a mile high, swallowed all of Phoenix. The buildings behind me, my shoulder, that's Arizona State University, right on the lake, as the cloud of dust. Behind that cloud of dust, torrential wind, torrential rain, trees knocked down, craziness happens. Why do I tell you all this? Well, because the issue is too often in the lives of our loved ones who are experiencing some difficulties or challenges with aging, there are signs, there are things that are happening, there are maybe indicators that things aren't going well or things are starting to shift. And when we ignore, deny, resist those things as a family, mostly as adult kids, we feel haboob and it hits us in the face. So today, what I typically do is talk to professionals who have a various unique perspective on people who have gone through some form of haboob or have experienced watching people age and seeing the challenges that can erupt and often suddenly. And today I've got a buddy of mine. We have not seen each other in quite some time. We got reacquainted a few weeks back. Daniel Hewson is with me. He's the founder and the principal. He and his wife own Ascent Audiology and Hearing. They're in the greater Phoenix area. They also have offices on the East Coast and the Carolinas. Daniel, man, it is so good to see you and get back together and get reacquainted. So how are you?
I'm doing just fine. It's really a pleasure to be on with you and to be reacquainted and being so busy doing so many things as we all are, but really a pleasure to be on here with you today.
Well, we met, man, we were revisiting. When did you start your business? Because we met right shortly after.
Yeah, so our practice opened October of 2015 is when we started Ascent. So we just went over our 10th year. Now we're on year number 11.
Wow. Our first interactions were when I was serving as the president of our local placement agency trade association. We call it Passers here in Phoenix. And you came in as a guest speaker. Somebody, Rita McBride or one of my buddies, invited you in to share that day. Do you remember?
Oh, I do remember. It was a fantastic experience, a great organization, and it was always a pleasure to always have an opportunity to educate people. It was about things that they don't know about. I call it the hearing haboob. Maybe we'll call it that. Maybe.
I'm probably going to end up sharing more about my own challenges with sorting out what I'm hearing now. I'm turning 63 in a couple of weeks. As the old Toby Keith song goes, I'm not as good as I once was.
Better than I was, right?
There is some darn truth to that. Yeah. When I remember you from back in the day when we met, when I read your bio, education is the centerpiece of your work, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, when I was born with hearing loss. So, it's not just what I do, it's what I live. And so when you grow up with hearing loss, they didn't discover it till I was 4 years old. So for me, it's a way of life. It's just part of who I am. And I think that's what that passion, it became the element of learning what I need to do to educate our patients and educate the society, educate our so much misinformation out there for our physicians and as well as with our patients and as well as family members. And there's so many things out there with hearing loss and the memory issues and correlating all together. It's such a massive thing that people don't even know that's happening, because it takes us 10 to 15 years before we even ever go get a hearing test, because everybody feels like they're hearing just fine. I don't have a problem. It's not me, it's you, right? It's
right.
I can hear fine if they just speak more clearly, or, it's just noisy in this restaurant, or it's too much music, or something like that, or if the TV shows aren't like they used to be, where it's much easier to hear them. So there's just so much that goes into, our world of what we do. But it really came from when I was, having hearing loss and putting hearing aids on in 1977. So, things have changed a lot dramatically in those 50 years since I started, well, not quite 50, but 48 years of wearing hearing aids. So at the end of the day, it's just one of those things that's like, realize, how much something can change your life. And so whether you're my age and got hearing aids at 4 years of age, or you're, let's say your age and you got something, it really changes the quality of people's lives. It's probably, talk about a profession where you really give back to people, because there's so much misinformation. There's so much unfortunate things that people don't know, because they think of hearing like a television, like a volume control. You turn it up and down and that's all it is. But it's actually, hearing loss is two-dimensional as opposed to one.
Well, tell me a little bit about tell me about the business first. Let's start there. How'd you launch? We talked about having businesses here and clinics here in
Yeah.
Phoenix, but now, of course, on the
Yeah.
East Coast. Talk about that a little bit, and then I
Yeah.
do want to narrow. I want to narrow the conversation and start to talk about some of those myths and things that people have a misunderstanding about.
Yes. Yeah. So 2015, we started in Glendale, our Glendale location, and I had worked previously in another private practice in town and worked for ENTs in town. So I was very familiar with different locations, and so I always knew I wanted to get something in Surprise, because I had a pretty big base in Surprise area. So I got introduced to a physician out there, and I started working inside of his clinic in 2017. And then we had another clinic, another group that was asking us to work with them, and we started working with them in their practice in 2017. That was in Goodyear. And then that kind of just led to, eventually we decided, we grew and got our own places and started from there. More recently, we started working with an ENT in town. So we're inside of their location, and then Sun City, and then kind of just expanded our Surprise location as well. So currently, we're blessed to have 6 locations that we have that are helping patients, and we also work inside of other independent and senior living places where we go in and work with the patients on a consistent basis. And then in 2020, just after COVID, one of my best friends is an ENT, was worked with me in Arizona prior to, in roughly 2008 to 2010, and he moved back to Greenville, South Carolina. And he started, he asked if I would help him start an audiology component out there with his ENT. And I said, sure, not knowing it was going to be a permanent fixture. So we started that in 2021, and we've been there ever since then. So we just had our 5th year anniversary of working in that clinic. And then along the way, I met another ENT who asked if I could help them start their audiology component. And then so we've been with him for coming up on 3 years. So now we have 5 locations, soon to be 5 locations in South Carolina. So I never thought I'd have this many locations, and I never thought I'd be working in 2 sides of the country. So that's been interesting.
Right. Well, we were talking about just doing the time zones. You were in Phoenix yesterday.
Yes.
Now you're 2 hours difference. Traveled across, and when you go west to east, y'all, you lose half the dang day because of the time it takes to get there. Plus, add 2 in the summertime. Add 3.
Yeah, it's rough when it's 3 hours. 3 hours time differences. You start working at 5 a.m. You got paid. If you're in Arizona, it's at 5 a.m. and in the East Coast, or excuse me, vice versa. I mean, you have to start at 5 a.m. in Arizona to start working with people that start at 8 o'clock. And I have people that start even earlier than that. It's a different thing, but it is what it is. You just get used to doing it. But yeah, it's fun.
Well, for those of you that are listening or maybe watching this here too, you just see Dan's smile and his energy. It's, I think people that serve our world, Dan, that have a long run, like you've had a long run, and you're still continuing to grow your impact. We're getting ready to celebrate our 23rd birthday as a business, Options for Senior Living, in March.
That's awesome.
You got to
Congratulations.
love what you do. You got to love people. Thank you.
Yeah.
You got to love, and I think it's that vibrancy, that vibration that we put out to the world, that we get from the work that we do.
It's true.
And for me, like you, education is the centerpiece of so much of what I try to do.
It's interesting because you find your passion in life, and for people in general, you hope that they find the passion of what they do. And I think as I go into my 30th year of practicing, I think, which is crazy to even think like that, but I think for me, it's like It's right. And so it's like people just need to know what they don't know. We spend many days of our lives, especially when it comes to hearing loss, they call that the invisible disability. People don't realize the implication of how much that affects the way their brain is functioning, and which leading to memory loss. Hearing loss is the number one cause of memory loss. And it is also important to understand that if you have hearing loss or a processing issue, which is its own animal, as I said earlier, hearing loss is two-dimensional as opposed to one. So we take a look at the hearing part of it. Well, that's the part where everybody thinks it is, and they get hearing aids and they don't like them because there's a second part to this, is the processing part, the way the brain is able to process the information that they hear. And the testing is really important to make sure we're showing our patients, how do we fix this? How do we help with that? And I think that's the educational part when you start recognizing for the characteristics that patients are suffering from in terms of their brain's ability to function as fast as it once was. And people discredit that because they want to blame it on age. I'm getting older, therefore, this is the reason why I'm not able to do what I once did. Well, there's some truth to some of that, but the problem is if we wait 10 to 15 years from the onset, we're going to have a lot of other problems because we didn't take care of something because we didn't know what we don't know. There was a study that showed the percentage of people when they go to their family doctor and they talk about the percentage of somebody who gets their eyes examined, their teeth examined, or their hearing examined. Well, eyes were number one. There was something like 73% of patients actually will go get their eyes examined because the doctor said that. When the doctor said, go get your teeth examined and get them clean, 62% of the patients went to go get that done. When it came to hearing, 8% went and got their hearing done.
Eight.
8. Right.
That's our.
So, right. So the problem ends up being is people think they're fine. I can hear what I need to hear, or I hear what I want to hear, or they make a premise based upon what maybe just in general does it affect me, and they don't realize that things happen. So when we do hearing tests, we talk to patients. It's so interesting. We talk to so many people when we come into the office about their case history, and then we'll start talking. Yeah, I hear fine. It's my wife. She mumbles and talks too fast or whatever. And it's like, so what about when you're in groups and restaurants? Yeah, I'm having trouble understanding speech. And then we do the hearing test. We have hearing loss. Now okay, this person thinks they're fine, and now they say they don't have any issues, right? And so now we know we have hearing loss. When we do the test and processing to verify how their brain is, making sense of the words that they don't hear, or speech and noise tests that we do to verify the inaccuracy when you got background noise and they have to repeat those sentences, it's absolutely astounding when it's almost like they realize at that point that something's not right. Up to that point, they think they're fine. I heard them all. I got them all right because they pushed a button every time they hear it, but they don't realize, well, it took you to get down to 50% loss of hearing before you finally pushed a button. But the tested noise is really, it really breaks people down to some extent because it makes them realize this is the same problem that I have when I'm in restaurants or groups. But this also comes from the person that said they didn't have much of a problem. And now they're talking about that they're okay and good enough. So it's interesting. It helps to correlate to the patient about what's really wrong. So it's really exciting to be able to just teach and educate patients about the things that they don't know. And I think that's what's really important in our practice and what we focus on. And, kind of going from Arizona to South Carolina and all those different things, like the message is the same, and then teaching the providers to understand that. Because, everybody has their own perspectives. Every practice has their own perspective. Every clinician has their own perspective. And at the end of the day, my biggest thing in education is that people need to really understand not only what is wrong, and so many people find out what is wrong and they decide whether they really need to do anything about it. But to me, it's more about the why. Why is this so important that we need to fix it? What is the big deal? Why are you telling me I need to fix this? Well, because your brain slows down. If you don't hear it right, you don't understand it right, you don't retain it, you don't recollect it correctly. So it starts affecting our short-term memory.
My brain's going in two directions, and I just want to bring both of
I'm
those to
sure.
the table and then have you address it. So first of all, a lot of us that might be listening to this are professionals that
Yes.
have various people in their worlds. So this message is for you, and we'll get back to you in a minute. Because I want to ask you specifically about some things that other professionals should be alert to. Number
Yes.
two, if you are an adult child, you're somewhere between the age of 45 and 65, and you've got parents that you're dealing with, and you're feeling their frustration, their isolation, their withdrawal, you're seeing things change in them, and they've never addressed this issue. Let's start there. And three, I'm in Bible study last night, Dan, and when they turn it over to the table time discussion, and it's a class at the church, and the whole room goes from quiet to, I feel like I'm alone in a room of 60 guys
Yeah.
because all I heard was buzz. I can't hear the guys next to me. I just hear this roar of noise. And so as you and I have talked the last few times, I'm like, wow. But like I said, not that I'm getting old, but I'm getting older. And if I don't address this, then what would you say to me in 10 years?
Right. Well, I always
Right?
like, for me, it's
I have my own move coming, maybe.
right. Well, I think, going back to like professionals, if you're working in this industry and you're working with assisted living or independent livings, one of the things in all the years when I would go into these different places and testing for some of the residents, it was like, these people have hearing loss. If the individual places don't recognize that there's definitive hearing loss, I always said that every place should make it mandatory that a hearing test is done. Because you should realize that, so many people are misdiagnosed with dementia, and they should have had a hearing test as well. If you're going to have a cognitive test, you need to have a hearing test, because if you don't hear it right, you don't understand it right, you don't retain it right. So it's not fair to the patient. So I think that's really important, from whether you're a professional in the industry, like what we are with patients and so forth, or if you have loved ones, it's like you need to make sure you have a hearing test, because their brain, there's a reason why they went from living in their own home. Now they're moving into an independent living. Okay, maybe we're downsizing, whatever the case may be. We can't do the things that we once did. But then you go from these husband and wives, or maybe they're single and they're moving into these places, and now they got how many people they're around. They're around tons of people, and they're
Yeah.
different events, and they can't process things like they once did. So they struggle. I had a lady one time I did a talk. She was sitting right in front of me when I was doing a talk at an independent, and she said, I moved in here 3 months ago, and I am more lonely now than I ever was, and I have more people around me
Right.
than I ever was, because I can't
Right.
hear. I don't understand what's going on. So that's the part where, like what you said, going to the church or going into the Bible study, you have all this noise going on. It's not that you didn't hear them. You're not able to process it because there's so much other stuff going on. Does that
Yeah.
mean you're too
Yeah.
old? No, you're not too old. It's just
Not
simply the
yet.
fact that the brain, was you lose more hearing, the brain is not able to process it as fast. Hypothetically speaking, if you even have hearing loss, but the point is that's what slows us down. And the longer we stay into that situation, what happens is the brain really slows down even further. And then people start withdrawing. Imagine being in that situation. How much did you get out of it? You enjoy being with people, you enjoy the circumstances and the relationships. But what happens when you can't understand? And it's over and over again. People, it's like, maybe I'm getting too old to do this, or maybe I don't want to be around that as much as I once was. And that's the worst thing, because you start getting more isolated. We're trying to
Yeah.
make sure people
Yeah.
understand. Don't let that happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and so for our folks that are in their 70s and 80s, or our parents that are moving into congregate living, where they've just been at home and they can adjust it,
Right.
but when they go into the dining room and there's
Yeah.
120 people in there at one
Yeah.
time, there's
All the
already
noise.
anxiety because, like,
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah.
been around that many people. But then if all you're hearing is buzzing, or you're not hearing that, but be
Yeah.
able to process that with the very thing we helped you move into to help you is now driving you into isolation and
Yes.
hiding, and that's awful. That's just awful.
It's it's so interesting.
Yeah,
Yes. What changes the quality of life? And I always tell patients, this is what it's all about. We're here to help you with the quality of life. We're here to give your patients hope, or the individual, whomever it is, hope to realize that if you do something now, because the Surgeon General recommends start getting your hearing by the age of 50, not 80, not 70, but 50 years of age, because there's also a correlation of our late 40s and early 50s and when memory loss starts occurring. Interesting that the hearing is the same time reference. So if the age of people, when I first started practicing in 1996, the age of people having hearing loss was 73.4 years of age. Now it's literally right at 60. Because what's happening is, as people are becoming more aware of it, they're identifying it sooner. And in 2021, or whatever year was when OTCs, or over-the-counter devices, came out, more people tried them. And then they realized, well, these are amplifiers. Yeah. There's a lot of correlation with stuff that people don't realize. There's so much more to hearing loss than what people realize. There's so much more Why do people who become audiologists go to school for 7 or 8 years in audiology do what they're doing with us? Because there's so much that you need to know. They're doctors of audiology, and we are a medical practice. Ascent Audiology and Hearing is not just a hearing aid clinic. We're also a medical model where we really focus on the care of patients with memory concerns or balance concerns, hearing loss, hearing aids, and ear cleanings and processing issues. There's so much involved to that. We just want people to realize it's not just about buying a widget. You're not just buying a widget and sticking it. Not a pair of cheaters you buy off a rack off a Target. And those are a lot of people who think that's all it is. We want people to be educated to more than anything. If I say one thing that's so important to people is just please make sure you understand what's going on, because of the fact that the number one cause of dementia is hearing loss. The number one modifiable factor, if you have hearing loss, to prevent dementia or improve the issues of dementia you might be starting to suffer, is wearing hearing aids with three stipulations: the right technology, the right programming, and wearing them at least 10 hours a day. And then the biggest problem with those three is sometimes we get the wrong technology in a patient. Maybe it's because of cost or whatnot. And number two, they're not wearing them like they should because they're living alone. And why should I wear it if my husband or my wife is no longer around? They're by themselves. And number three, unfortunately, which is the biggest one, is they're not programmed right. Programming is the most critical component. Where you've seen so many people who have hearing aids, it's not there's something wrong with their hearing aids. They're just not programmed right. And
Not
so
programmed right. Wow.
that's the number one biggest problem. So it's like, having something, it's like playing a piano and it's out of tune. Sounds terrible, right? Well, that's what hearing aids out of tune is. The same thing for the person. They're listening to like a piano that's out of tune. Sounds terrible to them, but they don't realize it because they think this is what it is. And when you clean it up and you reprogram it to the way it's supposed to be for their loss, they're like, are these my hearing aids? And then, they want to know, why didn't I have this done before like this? It's really about understanding what you're trying to do is fixing the hearing and fixing the brain. The brain is processing information.
You said something that it just strikes me, and I've heard it, and that when I heard you say it a couple of weeks ago when we talked, when you just said it again, it really boing, and that is the number one factor contributor to memory loss is hearing loss.
Yep.
Right. So in Arizona, we have two massive 1A healthcare concerns for the aging population. One is people fall all over the place, and we're wearing out our fire departments. We're wearing out the ERs with people that are falling and then having subsequent, often traumatic events or trauma to be treated after a fall. That's the first thing. Number two is the incidence of various dementia types is exploding amongst our population. Agreed?
Yes, hands down.
And
Go ahead.
No, and so, my goodness, with that truth, and if hearing is directly correlated to that, oh my gosh, we got to do way better than 8%. We got to have the practitioner pushing we got to have our primary care docs pushing us towards the specialists, like they pushed me towards the cardiologist and the endocrinologist. They need to push me to the audiology and the ENTs. Amen.
And that's really our working hard to make sure that doctors understand that it needs to come from them. And, the incidence of up to 48% of the reason why we do develop dementia, it's more of the percentage comes from hearing loss. But it's important to understand, going back to what you were talking about, balance issues, that, people with a mild hearing loss are 3 times as likely to have equilibrium issues, not necessarily dizziness, but equilibrium issues. So as we lose more of our hearing ability, what happens is the brain slows down to process the objections of things that they don't see because they're not reacting as fast. There's another reason why you see reaction time, like people driving can't process all the aspects of what you need to do in driving. Their brain is slowing down. They can't do things as fast as they once did. Yeah. And so they become more one-on-one. I need one thing at a time, because their brain no longer has the speed to keep up. And so we see a greater incidence of people with balance issues. And it actually talks about when we put hearing aids on patients, it improves their balance because it improves the speed at which their brain is calculating data in their brain, because their brain is working faster. So, for example, you're back to your guys' Bible study. If you have a hearing loss and you need hearing aids, you put them on. And so we go into that environment. A lot of people, they put them on and they can hear better, but they go, I still have all this background noise. It's still noisy. But when those things are programmed right and you have the right technology, that part is not bothering you anymore because they're dialed in. Because now what the devices are designed to do to improve the speed of our brain function, it separates that noise from speech so you can focus on what people are saying and you're not inundated by the noise. Because we can control noise. There's a myriad of ways of controlling noise, but the biggest thing is, are you hearing like you should be? So we test you with the devices on to verify that you're hearing like you're supposed to be. And most importantly, how are you processing information compared to your original hearing test? Have we fixed your hearing? Have we fixed your processing? And then we can have a conversation and say, this is how much we're going to be able to help you, because we maximize the way your brain responds to the way the devices are programmed. It's not a matter of, what do you think? You want it louder or softer? We're going to tell you what you need based upon the type of loss you have. It takes the subjectivity out and makes it all about the objective focus to improve the way this thing's working. This is more important than this, not to deny the importance of this, but this brain of ours, if it slows down enough, we can't do the things we once did. It will affect our long-term memory permanently.
No, absolutely. My gosh, my brain just, like, you just talk and I just start like popcorn in my head, man. It's like,
Processing.
well, process. I feel like, holy smokes, what can we do in 2026 to help primary care practices better understand this? And
Yeah,
so to increase awareness, having them guide you have practices that are just focused on the Medicare group, right? They just serve
yeah,
65
that's
and
right.
older folks.
Right.
And and I'm just thinking of ways the senior living communities that I work with all over the place talk about their activities, and then they get people to engage in isolate. But then you talk about, here's a lady that goes into senior living and withdraws because she's not
Yep,
processing what and it
that's
drives
right.
her into hiding. And I'm just
Yep.
thinking, my goodness, damn, we could do so much good work coming up with
Yes.
waving the banner and waving the flag.
Well,
And
I mean, can you just imagine if your loved one, whomever that might be, that's struggling with things, or if they're gone, you think about those loved ones that are no longer with us and think about what if. It's always about the what if. And I always tell people that if you're still here on this earth and there's something you can do to take care of the issue, man, be well aware of that this hearing element of the brain's processing capability or lack thereof can be rectified if we know what's wrong. And we can't
yeah,
fix something if we don't know what it is. We don't know what's
yeah,
happening. And that's why I just tell, so anybody and when we're going to the doctor's office is, hey, this is critical information. Your patients are going getting their teeth cleaned and their eyes examined, but they're not getting their hearing. It's because when they go into the doctor's office, the doctors have, they got their list of things they got to do. They're getting paid less than they used to get paid per visit. But when they're going through that list, technically they have to last the well visit. They have to ask one question: how's your hearing? Well, if they're sitting right in front of somebody in a quiet room and they're looking right at you, my hearing's fine. Like, okay, well, good. I'll move on to the next thing. So when you start talking to the family and they start saying that I'm losing my loved one, I'm losing connection, I'm having communication issues, I'm worried about them, I don't think they're safe anymore, I don't think they should be living here anymore, and then they move into this place, and then they find out afterwards that they had hearing loss, and had they been wearing hearing aids, they probably would have had better balance. They definitely would have better recollection, cognitive component, and they probably would have been just fine staying at home, hypothetically speaking.
yeah.
You know, so,
What can we do about the stigma that, it feels like it's
yeah,
always been around? We have, like you said, people, we have glasses. I got readers. I got
yeah,
20 pairs of
yeah,
readers around my desk right
yeah.
now. But there seems to
It's
be a stigma attached and people want to hide this.
it's gotten so much better now because of all the stuff that people are wearing in their ears, and now it's becoming a lot more easily accepted. I think at the end of the day, I think what it is, hearing aids make people feel incompetent. Hearing loss makes people incompetent. And, glasses don't
Mm,
make you feel incompetent because you can put them on and it easily fixes the issue. You put hearing aids
yeah.
on, it's different. It feels different. It sounds different because we're really impacting the brain. And so when we're not getting, if you put something on and you spend whatever you spend on the devices and you put them on
Yeah.
and you're still not understanding the words, the clarity, the understanding. And that's where a lot of this is so important to have this constant care, the follow up, you come in every 3 months, things of that nature, because we're taking care of this brain needs that consistent adjustment. And I think for people, like I've worn hearing aids since I was 4 years old, and I used to hide them hair over my ears because I didn't want people to know that I wore hearing aids. I mean, I get it. I get the whole stigma.
Yeah.
But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, when you prove to someone what you can do to improve their quality of life, they don't care. And then there's a lot of options in the ear, small ones, bigger ones, things that they're so hidden and so tiny now compared to 1977 when I used to call them, I didn't want to wear my bananas on my ears because they were so big, and
Yeah.
it's changed, but I think
Yeah.
for me, it's like hearing loss is becoming more accepted in our society. But what
Yeah.
happens is we become our own worst enemy because we want to hang on to our youth. And I tell people hearing aids actually make you younger because it makes your brain work more competently. And at the end of the day, if you know you can prevent dementia by taking care of the problem at a younger age, I'll tell you two ways. It's easier to fix and it's a lot less expensive if you do it earlier in the stage of the loss, because the worse the brain or the more the brain slows down, the more you need a higher level technology, which also is more expensive, because that's the difference of hearing aids is the speed of the processor to fix the speed of the processing issue that a person has with their hearing loss.
So you bring it up, and let's touch on this real quick, and then
Yeah.
I've got a kind of a final question for you. But
Okay.
um,
Perfect.
you say you have a medical practice and all that. So health insurance, we can use our health insurance to see the practitioners and that kind of thing. And then the
Yep.
equipment is a different issue. I guess in that
Right.
there's two camps here.
The insurance is a big deal because obviously we know Medicare will pay for one hearing test a year. So we know that all insurances will pay one hearing test a year. Now you may have a copay or something like that. That's just standard. Some of them do, some of them don't. One of the best things in our world today is that, there's a lot of secondary insurances. If you have a supplemental insurance, whether it's through Aetna, United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, you name it, whatever it's out there, there's a lot of third party elements there where they give you discounts or they give you better pricing or whatever the case may be, or lower level technology for less expensive, or there's an option for everybody based upon that. So what's great is there's so much more now than there was when I first started practicing, and it's really readily accessible to patients. The other flip side of the coin is making sure that whoever you go to actually accepts your insurance. So a lot of places will give you a discount, but they don't really you're not really registered with the practice. The other thing is what's nice is we're able to bill insurance for the visits. So patients aren't paying for the visits, just like a doctor's office. We just bill
Yep.
insurance for the visits in that regards. And you were saying about equipment. What was the question?
So then, what if anything does insurance cover on any
For the
prescribed
hearing aids?
devices that? Yeah, the
Yeah.
equipment or the device.
So it's for the consumer, it has improved dramatically in that regards. And I think the other part is if you have a insurance that doesn't necessarily pay for hearing aids, that doesn't necessarily mean they won't pay for service. So that's the part of just knowing what your insurance does. We have our own billing company internally. So what's great about that is that they do everything for us in terms of, knowing what the information is for the patient. We can tell them year over year or visit over visit if there's any changes in their what they offer through their insurance companies. But at the end of the day, there's something for everybody. And we just want to make patients be properly educated about the issues that they have. But you just want to make sure that as a consumer, that they accept insurance. Big
Yeah,
one.
and that's, I think the fear of the unknown, Dan, keeps people stuck sometimes, right? And if you
Yes.
think this is going to
Yep.
be a $10,000 hit and I can't do it, and I've already done
Yep.
shut down to the idea, we're saying, hey,
Yep.
no, check your insurance. Medicare can help. There's
That's
other
right.
options.
That's right.
Do not preclude yourself from getting care. Get what you need. Get checked out. Yeah.
That is exactly right. And that's the more people are aware of that, don't be afraid of it. And if nothing else, get a hearing test every year. Just getting a
Yeah.
hearing test every year. Just get a baseline. Find out where you
Yeah.
are. Find out what your options are. Don't do anything until you feel like your brain is ready to accept the problem that you have and that
Yeah.
you have somebody who's really explaining the real root of the problem. That's really
Yeah.
important.
Awesome. So we're going to kind of bring this in for a landing, and I feel like, you know what, maybe in a month or three we should do this again and dive in a little
Yes.
deeper. But um, is there a final thought, how you want to, a message that you're carrying for 2026? What banner are you flying this year? Any final thought you want to give us before we get out of here?
I think the biggest thing is just helping people to realize that you can change the course of your life by understanding what's going on with the auditory part of the brain. There's a lot of hope. There's so many people who have hearing loss. Hearing loss is emotional. When you lose your hearing, you lose your connection with people. And I want people that, whether it's the professionals, whether it's the people living in independent livings, whether it's the caretakers, whether it's our loved ones, our mom and dad or sister, whomever, brother. The key is that there's so much that we can do to help with patients and give them so much hope from that standpoint. Life doesn't have to be a major decline. Something's going to get us in the end, I always say. But what we can do, we don't know quantity, but we can change the quality of people's lives. They just need to be properly educated. We spend an hour with a patient and help them understand, hey, this is the problem. And if they're not ready to make a decision, we bring them back for another hour, another time, and we demonstrate the devices to them to help them understand what it is that they need to improve the way their brain is processing information. Then they can make a calculated decision. But if you don't know what you don't know, you're not going to do squat until it becomes a massive problem, and then it's affecting your quality of life. My passion is the desire to get out to people is don't be afraid of a hearing test. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't take long. It's an hour, and you're going to gain a lot of information. And our practice is really focused on the medical, educational side of it, so you know exactly what's going on with this and with this.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate and enjoyed the conversation
Thank
today.
you.
I mean it. I just love your education heart and want to bring,
I love that
because look,
you're amazing. So
well, thank you.
you're out there, you're doing this hard, you're getting the information out, you're giving everybody an educational stand to come on, a foundation to be able to support what you're doing and letting us talk about the things that is important to us, but it's also important to your listeners. And I think what you're doing is fantastic. We're fortunate to have you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is awesome information, y'all.
Thank-
Touch base with Dan. Your website, Dan, before we get out of here, is
Yep.
Ascent
Yep.
Audiology Arizona.com.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well,
Everything's on there. All of our
thank you.
locations and everything.
Well, this has been another episode. Daniel Hewson, great to see you again.
Thank
Let's
you.
do this again soon. I'll be in touch.
Yes. Thank you.
And we
Appreciate
just want to
you.
let you guys know, take heed, man. Don't let Haboob hit you in the face. These things are coming, and these are some simple things we can do to make life better and do what we can to mitigate the risk that our parents are facing, and certainly we as an adult child group are facing for ourselves. So look forward to our next conversation. Thanks for joining us today. Take care.